Just letting you know, if you see me look over, I'm looking at a timer. Um, I was asked to share my practice of mindful choice and action. And so I thank you for listening. Mindful choice and action, what is it? I went to the principal book of Won Buddhism and got a definition. I'm paraphrasing. Making the choice to do what's right and abandoning the wrong when my six senses come into contact with anything and anyone. This is important to me because practicing karmic choice and action helps me progress towards my three spiritual aims. One, as stated in the Ilwan Sang Bao, it's to unite with the essential nature of Ilwan. Number two, to engage in a sincere and dedicated practice for mental autonomy. And three, to embody what Founding Master Sotaesan described in the scriptures doctrine, verse 33, quote, to apply Buddha Dharma widely to the individual, family, society, and to the nation. I would like to use one of my sensory conditions that moves me to sort of give an example of how the mindful choice and action practice works for me. I work as a speech language therapist. So I guide clients with techniques to teach them how to talk, to understand, read, and write in a given language. And, even though this is my job, I have difficulty understanding some English speakers, especially those who I perceive talk quickly, those who I perceive talk in many, many, many sentences, those who use sort of language that's a bit more sort of idiomatic, so that has language that has a lot of words that don't mean what they say. So that kind of gets my mind riled up. I become disturbed. And so my habitual reactions to this type of situation has been anything from a fuzzy feeling inside in my chest to, oh boy, I'm not going to understand this. Here we go again, to my eyebrow raising. And so this may not sound like much, but I'm remembering my spiritual aims to be able to see a situation clearly and respond as Ilwan Sang would, my mental autonomy, and what kind of example I'm giving for others. My mind is originally free from disturbance, but disturbances arise in response to sensory conditions. Let me give rise to the absorption of my self-nature by letting go of disturbances. So to let go of disturbances and give rise to equanimity, the principal book of Won Buddhism describes the practice of Ilwan Sang, or the threefold study, which I try to weave into every day and every moment. So cultivation of the spirit, engaging in the seated chanting meditation morning and evening, that gives me that practice using my Dantian inhalations and exhalations as that anchor. So repeatedly returning that attention to the Dantian when those thoughts arise, and then making that space with each return between the thoughts. So I'm disciplining, preparing my mind so that it's calm and aware when I get in those situations where I have those. And maybe seeing these situations also that are potentially uncomfortable as grace. And as the scriptures say, a chance to practice. And then responding as though I believe it. That in my mind is the mindful choice in action. So how do I prepare to break that cycle of that habitual response of either that feeling inside or the chatter in my head as a result? Well, going back to the principal book of Won Buddhism, it describes the use of a fixed term diary. And This fixed term diary is part of nurturing my mind and cultivating that wisdom. And I do this by getting to the root of why I was moved by the sensory condition, and then to create a plan. I have this on a separate piece of paper because this is not in English. This is straight from the book. X, that's the person's name, seemed to come out of nowhere and began talking so quickly to me, rapid fire questions, using a ton of idioms. I felt that tingle of disturbance coming up in my chest. Boy, I became so irritated at him. But wait, why did I react like this? Expectations. He shouldn't talk to me like this. He knows this is difficult for me. Judging. Shouldn't talk so much. When am I going to talk? Comparing mind. I wouldn't do that to him. Ego entity. I actually think there's an entity called Desi that actually exists to be wronged. So after writing that down and reflecting on that, I make a plan. And so this is the plan to prepare my mind for mindful choice and action for the next time. What changes, what adjustments to my behaviors for the use of my mind, and to practice responding as Ilwan Sang would. Perfectly, completely, impartially, selflessly. Not there yet, but that's the aim. In addition, it's also practicing recognizing grace, the Buddha in everyone and everything, and then responding, requiting that grace. So recently I carried out this plan, which was interesting because it was like the very next day. Excuse me, timer going off. And I carried out the plan, and this is what it was. As soon as I saw his lips about to move, I returned to Dantian. Remember, cultivation of spirit, preparing on the cushion for off. Returned to Dantian and observed and actively listened and responded from there. I used the internal indicator sort of as a check, how are you really in the Dantian, or are you kind of... And then this time I was able to ask questions for clarification, to actually show some grace to this person, the grace of actively listening. And if it weren't a time to actually ask those questions because there wasn't space, then I remembered, guess what? You don't have to talk. If there's no space to talk, then immediately after reflecting, did I see the grace in the moment? And then measurement. Measurement for me, if you see this around my neck, this is my clicker, mindfulness, unmindfulness. And then also on my cell phone, I have this app called Q-Tally. And that's where I can get possibly a more accurate count of precepts and some other things that I sort of want to work on that would benefit me and others. And by the way, the count is also like, for instance, even if my eyebrow goes up or my head moves, because those are indicators to people. I'm speech language, because you move something and that means something, and I could be triggering something else in someone else. Calm awareness of my mind and my functioning. And then after I debrief in daily diary. So that's where I see, did I do what I set out to do? One prepares the other. As it says in the scriptures, this prepares for this, back to this circle. And so to finish up, how would I encourage others to, I guess, begin or create or continue a practice like this? Just piece by piece and with patience, I really take to heart when it says in the scriptures, practice for a long time. It means this lifetime and next and next. And so just picking one situation, activity, or behavior that's meaning for you, reflecting and assessing, sharing your experiences with others, listening to others' experiences, sharing it with families, coworkers, not preachy, but mindfulness is trending. And then just being able to let it flower from there through my behaviors in the community and with others. And that's pretty much a snapshot into how my mindfulness and action practice goes for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Desi. That was so lovely. Remind me not to go second next time. Thank you, Chris. It was so great. I really appreciated that today. I wanted to start with a story, actually, that I read about a year ago. And it's a story about a 92-year-old woman. And she had to move into a nursing home because she had her husband of 70 years, they were married, had passed away, and she was moving into a nursing home. And I have to read this actually. On the way to her new room, she was waiting for her room to be ready. And a man was there, an attendant, and he was describing the room to her. And she said, let's show you this. She said, "I love it." And he said she stated that with like an 8-year-old enthusiasm. And he said, "Mrs. Jones, you haven't seen the room yet. Just wait." She said, "That doesn't have anything to do with it. Happiness is something you decide on ahead of time. Whether I like my room or not doesn't depend on how the furniture is arranged. It's how I arrange my mind. I already decided to love it. It's a decision I make every morning when I wake up. I have a choice. I can spend the day in bed recounting the difficulty I have with the parts of my body that no longer work, or get out of bed and be thankful for the ones that do. Each day is a gift, and as long as my eyes open, I'll focus on the new day and all the happy memories I've stored away just for this time in my life." I really love that story. When I watched Reverend your beautiful Dharma talk again, I was really moved by a few things, and how you speak about choice and action as the fruit of our practice. And it's that choice in our everyday that we can do every single day that makes it, I think as Desi said, makes it our practice complete, that we put our practice into action when we choose. And you also talked about kind of the foundation of that. And you said that Master Soto-san said there's 2 important things that we must know, that we should know or should try to learn or try to wake up to. And the first one was the principle of the karmic principle of cause and effect. And you said the karmic principle of cause and effect, of course, is the actions that we've created in the past. Now that's the direct reflection of what we are receiving now, currently. So it's a little bit hard sometimes when we encounter difficult situations to really hold that, unless we understand the second part of it, which is the neither arising nor ceasing, the truth of neither arising or ceasing. And I wanted to just use an analogy to sort of look at that for a moment. Because if I use the analogy of water, for example, water is ever changing, right? It goes from solid to liquid to gas, right? It's always in this constant cycle of change, just like we are, always in a constant cycle of change, birth, death, and rebirth. However, water is still water, just like we are. There's something about us that's still it's still us. It's still that essential true nature of who we are. Water is also dependent upon its environment, dependent upon the atmosphere, just as we are dependent upon our, that's why we have the four graces. We are dependent upon our environment. And so essentially we are never ever alone. We are never ever separate. Water is never separate. And the other thing about water is it never arises and never ceases. We've never gotten more water on the planet. We've never lost water. It's always been the same amount of water. It's very interesting. So there's something about our nature that has always been. There's sort of, it's an isness. It's not, even in its changing, there's an unchanging. So even if it's movement, there's a stillness. This is sort of Ilwansong, also like Desi was saying. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because when we understand that karma is not, the principle of karma is not dependent upon time or space. So the choices that we've made in the past could be in, another lifetime that we're experiencing now, or we can make in the future. So here's how I want to look at this though. I want to look at this for the amazing wondrousness that it is, because it truly is wondrous. Because now knowing that truth at this moment, it's like, well, we've never heard it before. If we know that truth, then at this very moment, we know that we have numerous opportunities to create, be like in conscious creation with our world and create a better world simply by the choices that we make now and the choices that we continue to make in our daily life every single day. And we get hundreds, if not thousands of choices in each moment. So we can look at, if you just look at our from breakfast to lunch today, you can kind of pinpoint, this is the movement of our mind is very dynamic. We're frustrated, or we're happy, or we're this annoying or that. It's all dependent upon our likes or our dislikes, our discrimination or our attachment, right? Today, someone said to me, and this is so silly, but someone said to me, I think it's going to snow tomorrow. And I went, ugh, it's going to snow tomorrow. It was so silly, but it was a funny thing to catch. But in that moment, it's just normal. So, okay, I had a reaction to the snow. I could have made a choice. I could have called a friend and said, did you know it was going to snow tomorrow? It's going to be, and then I create a story, a thought story. And that thought story creates more suffering, right? There's my attachment, my discrimination. I don't like snow. I'm going to be damp. It's going to be cold. It's going to be slippery. It's going to be a pain in my butt, very much. I could say that. I could create the story. And the other part of that is that I have no idea when I make that phone call and tell the other person on the end of the line how that's going to affect that person. That could be the one thing that put her over the edge for that day. It could have created a lot of suffering, and I don't know that. So it's interesting, in that moment, we have a choice, and the way to really approach that choice for me, how I've been taught in Won Buddhism, is simply to first pause, take a breath, don't automatically react. So we have to do this over and over again, as Master Sotasan says in that, I think it's on page 141. And he says that the mind is, I think I said this, the mind is so extremely subtle that when you, gosh, I'm forgetting, when you catch it, how does it, anyway, I'm not going to go there because I forgot, but I want to say that it's really about catching the mind. I'm not going to say it verbatim. So when you grab hold of it, and disappears when you let it go, forgive me. So when you grab hold of it, you catch it, but when it disappears when you let it go, the mind. So you have to continue to try to catch it in each moment, but that takes practice. It takes a lot of time and practice. And it's sort of this is a process. So in that process, we get to be kind to ourselves in the process. We get to understand that You know, we could not make wise choice and action 100 times, and there's always going to be 101, because we are limitless beings. We always have another opportunity. The thing that is important is our dedication to the practice and dedication to doing it, trying again and again and again and again, and never giving up on that. The other thing I wanted to reiterate, and I want to just share, I don't know how my time is, I just wanted to share a quick story. And that is a story of when Reverend Yu talks about your goal, setting your life goal, and how that's very helpful to make wise choice and action. I wanted to share a story, and this story is shared in a paper. So this is a story about my brother, and I was on a conference call with his doctor's office, and he was getting results from test results from a tumor. And I heard the doctor say to him, "Mr. Nefi, you have an inoperable cancerous pancreatic tumor." And I was on the other end of the line, and my reaction, I watched my mind grasp and try to fix it and try to figure it out. I watched the doctor say, "Did you hear me, Mr. Nefi? Are you okay?" I found out later that he said that because my brother was smiling. And my brother said, "Yes, I heard you." He said, "Thank you, doctor." He said, "Now I can really help people." So what's really beautiful about that moment is that he chose in that moment to accept his inevitable death, and also chose to use that news to then use the rest of his time to help other people. And that was solely based on, in my opinion, because he had a great vow. And they called him a prayer warrior. So he had a great vow to help the world. And in every moment, he never wavered. Doctors were amazed by his response to that, to his treatment. And he died with grace and making a humongous difference in the world. So our choices, no matter how big or how small, they make a huge difference to not only ourselves, but to the whole world. The last thing I want to say very quickly is something, Grace, that you said. You came and did a Dharma talk at the center maybe a year or so ago. And you talked about the importance of the vow and choice and action. And you said, this is what you said. You said it really comes down to what you want to do. And if you want to do this, why not put in the effort to do it? And then you said, you talked about our founding masters, like Master Sotasan and Master Chungsan and Master Daesan, and you said, if you want to have proof that a vow works, you said you're sitting in it. So this Dharma Center exists because of the great vows that they made. And Dharma Center and Won Buddhism exists in America because of those vows and how important that is. And I never forgot that you said that. And so, I mean, that's it. I just hope, it is my great wish that we can all make that vow and work hard together to continuously make right choice and action and practice together for that. Oh, you know what Wayne Dyer said? One last thing. Wayne Dyer said this really beautiful quote. He said, "Don't let the music die inside of you." That was really good. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you so much, Desi. Such rich presentations full of great reflections. So I open it up to our community. If you'd like to just, share your experiences or perhaps your reflections after hearing their presentations, please feel free. Yeah, we open it up to you. Randy.
Hi. I was having a hard day, and from the moment that Chris's metta meditation practice and began, I felt more relaxed. And then both of those talks were so inspirational. And Desi's talk, like, I'm thinking to myself, why don't you have such a definite, like, formal practice like that? And it was just very motivating, because I don't really do I write different types of writing every day, like a journal, but I don't do the specific mind practice. And of course, Kathy's talk was heartbreaking at the end, but I mean, bittersweet, because it's sad about her brother, but his vow was just so. My level of stress from having a really stressful day because of some personal problems just like went from the ceiling to the floor, and listening to those talks, and I'm just extremely grateful and thankful, and I feel so much better, and it's just amazing just how listening to Dharma friends could, change your whole outlook. So thank you.
I was impressed with how Davy was able to make a plan and carry it out and catch herself. I guess that's my shortcoming is sometimes I respond to people, they'll say something that I disagree with, and I'll come back immediately. And this often happens between my wife and I, to be honest. and I have trouble catching myself that I'll say something, then I'll say, wait a minute, I shouldn't have done that. Let me think about this a minute. But it's always after the fact. I'm really impressed with Davy's ability to catch herself. I guess it was helpful to know this same person was coming back, but as soon as their lips moved, you started thinking about how you were going to respond. And anyway, I found it very impressive. Something I need to try and emulate.
I saw some nodding of the heads while Bob was talking, including mine. Yeah. Yes, Christine.
So in both your talks, you mentioned the word grace. And Desi, I love the way you said even look at a potential problem as grace. So I think of grace as being like unbounded love that I get for doing nothing for it. So to look at a problem or something difficult, or like your brother, Kathy, to just say, wow, now I can help others, or this potential problem, like I can deal with that. I thought that was really beautiful. It's just so good to take that breath and step back and look at things. And I am part of a meditation group that meets every morning, and we have a woman who's been coming, and she did not meditate before this. So we've been doing this since COVID started. And the other day she relayed a story, and she said she was with her husband, and they actually drove from New York to Pennsylvania, and we're driving back. And he said to her, I just want you to know that I think we're going to run out of gas, and there's a tunnel coming up. So I think it's going to happen before we get in the tunnel. And the tunnel was a really long tunnel. And she said her reaction to that 8 months ago would have been, what's wrong with you? You're in charge of the car. Why didn't you get gas? And she said she just took a really deep breath and sat back. They pulled over when the car ran out of gas, And 2 minutes later, one of those assistance vehicles showed up, gave them 2 gallons of gas so they could get to a gas station. They tried to tip him. They tried to give him money. The guy would take nothing. He said, nope, this is my job. And she said the whole rest of the trip was beautiful. So it just shows me that there's so much power in our breath and our choices and our believing in the force of grace and kindness and openness and our ability to respond and begin again when we don't, because I don't always do it either. So, so just thank you tonight, Kathy and Desi. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Christine. And Steve?
Yeah, listening to you, Desi, remind me of chapter 12 of the scripture. The way I was reading it and interpreting it, the founding master was living and demonstrating his virtuous life. And so what I think tonight you shared is that we all are on this journey to try to live a virtuous life and learn from our prior mistakes. So kudos to you of being able to show righteousness and virtue and grace to others and continue to grow. And I hope that I too continue to grow like you are through my journey as well. And Kathy, listening to you reminded me of the fact that mentioning cause and effect, cause and effect affects us clearly, but there's also a ripple effect as well. Our actions then go and affect others. And so we need to be, so the way that we live our lives, and again, getting back to the being virtue, right mind, right choice and action, and so on, it's not only going to help us, but it's going to help others too. Get almost like Christine's point of view, that we can spread the right choices that we make to others, and then hopefully in turn they are making right choices as well, living through a life of virtue and making right choices.
Yes, Brenda. Brent, oh, okay. Wait, Brenda, if you unhook it, is there a microphone? Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, yes, we can hear. Yes.
Okay, you can hear me wiggling around and everything. Okay. Okay. So just, I don't know, my heart is very tender, and it's just, it's beautiful what was spoken. And something that kept coming to my mind multiple times through our readings and also in the discussion or in the presentations was this that I had heard recently, and this is from a Christian church, but it's very I feel appropriate as well. And it says this person suggests that one's life cannot be both faith-filled and stress-free. It simply will not work to glide naively through life. Saying, as we sip another glass of lemonade, Lord, give me all thy choicest virtues, but be certain not to give me grief, nor sorrow, nor pain, nor opposition. Please do not let anyone dislike me or betray me. And above all, do not ever let me feel forsaken by thee or those I love. In fact, Lord, be careful to keep me from all the experiences that made thee divine. And then when the rough sledding by everyone else is over, please let me come and dwell with thee, where I can boast about how similar our strengths and our characters are as I float along on my cloud of comfortable Christianity. And I just really liked that sense of that, you know, we each have these really difficult struggles, and we become more, I guess we have a choice, we all have a choice, but we can become more than we ever were or could have been without these experiences, that through the choices that we make and the actions from those choices, we can experience a type of joy, you know, a type of peace that comes from knowing truth and knowing the decisions we made were good. And I just really, I don't know, I just wanted to share that with you because it kept buzzing in my head. I just like the idea of, you know, let me have a simple time and everybody else, you know, I just want to be like everybody else without all the trouble. So anyway.
Thank you for that, Brenda. What a great quote. Yeah. Thank you for the sharing. So what I'm loving about hearing everyone's feedback is that I see that there's a lot of self-reflection for myself as well. As when I hear the presentation, there's always a reflection about, am I practicing this or have I gone through this? So I feel like we're just learning a lot from each other, and even from the comments that are coming out too, it's another form of reflection. So I want to thank everyone for giving their feedback and their reflections. So I would like to hand it over to Reverend Yu now, please.
Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you, Desi and Kathy, for your candid and wonderful presentation. 1 month ago, we studied Il-Won-Sang vow. As I said, one and the only way to be free from suffering and lead a happy and free life. That's a perpetual is for us to be united with our true self, Il-Won. That's our vow, our direction. For that, Il-Won has 3 aspects. Our original mind, it's originally very calm and clear. For that, we studied 3 weeks ago, spiritual cultivation. The first one of the 3 for the practice. Our mind is originally wise and bright, originally. In order to restore that, we studied the cultivation of wisdom. So in our principal book of Won Buddhism, we say the inquiry of human affairs and the universal principle. And our mind is originally free from wrongdoing. Just like the description of the essential dharmas of daily practice, to restore that original aspect of our true self. Today, we are studying choice in action. Choice in action is the translation of Jat Up Chi Sa. Choice in action, not bad, but inaction not necessarily means our deed. It includes our speech and our thoughts. One night, Bill Gates said to his father, I need some conversation with you. His father was a little nervous. And Bill Gates said he was a sophomore in college. He said his vision, what he would like to do in his life. And the bottom line is he would like to withdraw from college. He would like to live college life. His father was surprised. Without having bachelor's degree, What would you do? What if your business fails and you have no bachelor degree? You accepted you entered Harvard in a very hard way, but his father continued to talk. But Bill Gates said, Father, the work, the task that I plan to do, it should be done now. He said, now or never. Think about that. Bill Gates graduated from Harvard. I think he would become a very good computer programmer who's making a lot of money. But his choice to leave the college not only made a difference in his life, it made a big difference in this society. Or Reverend Kang or Reverend Grace, do you remember the day you decide in your mind, I'd like to become a Won Buddhist minister? I remember that day. Or think about the day you decide in your mind, I will marry that person. Or think about the night Napoleon decided his mind, we will invade Russia. That's at the beginning stage of the collapse of Napoleon Empire. So from the personal level to the global, national level, our choice make a very big difference. Your destiny, your current life is the result of your choice, from minor to greater. Why we study choice in action? Our choice in action is related with happiness or unhappiness in our life. It's a very practical one. So, since Minsun is here, share the screen. Okay, let us see. 이미 띄워놨어. 지금 볼 수 있나? 응? 다 띄워놨다니까. Okay, our founding master said, the choice in action, as Kathy quoted, is the fruit of our practice. Meditation or Dharma study can be good-looking branches or flowers, but the fruit should be manifested in our real life by choice in action. Choice in action is directly related with our destiny, but why we cannot make a very good choice, thus consequently driving our life sometimes or many times to a miserable state of life or suffering. Our founding master said, there are 3 reasons why we cannot make some choices skillfully. Sota-san said that the first reason is because of the ignorance of the right and wrong in actual situation. So our founding master said, the most urgent thing for the practitioner in life is not to do a lot of meritorious deeds. The most urgent thing is to realize the eternal truth of life and death and karmic principle of cause and effect. For example, if people do not believe in the karmic principle of cause and effect, like the word of Jesus, we reap exactly what we sow. That person's life or choice is very, very different from the practitioner who believe in the karmic principle of cause and effect. It's the same if a person realize the truth of eternal life. Death is not it. We have countless unfolding lives before us. That person's life goal is very different from the average person. So the first reason is the ignorance of right and wrong in actual situation. So in the later chapter of our principal book of One Buddhism, our founding master said clearly, the cause behind abandoning happiness and embracing suffering. The first cause is the ignorance of the origin of suffering and happiness. I will read this quotation. When our founding master was staying at the Bongne Hermitage, one day he heard a shriek of a wild boar a hunter was slaughtering. So pitiful, it prompted the founding master to say, one's gain is another's loss. He also said, witnessing the death of this wild boar, I can surmise it's a past deed. And witnessing this hunter slaughtering the wild boar today, I can also surmise what the hunter will face in the future. We do not know. We have to make very good choice. Good choice is a right choice. But average practitioner, average people do not know what is right, what is wrong. Even though you try to mindfully to choose the right. That's why, how does the Judeo-Christian tradition start? It's from Moses receiving 10 commandments. 10 commandments. It's just like a Buddhist precepts. Precepts, mindfulness items. Buddhist precept is called the Ge. What does this character looks like? Ge means a precept, code of conduct. Code of conduct. This Chinese character, the literal meaning of Ge or precept is a crossbar, a board to lock the door. In order to safely shut ourselves, safely preserve ourselves from other suffering or pitfalls, we cross the bars to stay inside our house in safe way. That's the meaning of the precepts, Ge. So, you know, all these 10 precepts for the elementary phase grade, the precepts of the special phase, and the precepts of the battle between Dharma and Mara. In Won Buddhism, we have 30 precepts. When I was in elementary school, I really hated the class of dictation. The teacher says something and we needed to dictate with some proper spelling. I was not good at that. I was a little nervous. I would like to avoid that class, but that's not possible. But after several months, I discovered it really helps. It really helps. I could write in a very proper Korean language because of that class. All these precepts seems like a shaker. It's something that Buddha asks us not to do, usually not to do. The thing that we would like to do. But it's just like the uncomfortable dictation class, it really helps. The first reason we cannot make a very wise choice is the ignorance of the right and wrong. The second reason why we cannot make a very good choice, our founding master said, it is because of the desire that we cannot control. The second reason is the desire. He expressed in this way, the desire that flares up, that arises like a fire. Desire is usually compared not just by Sotaesan, but Shakyamuni Buddha, by many masters, like a fire. What's the nature of the fire? It's a very, very hot, and it's unstable fire. And it's a constantly growing, bigger and bigger, if we don't try to extinguish it. One Buddhist master said, the world is on fire. Your mind is on fire. Shakyamuni Buddha said, fire sermon. This is a very, very well-known Buddhist scripture quotation. Monks and nuns, the world is burning. With what is it burning? How is it burning? The eyes are burning. The ears are burning. Your minds are burning. With what fires are they burning? With the fire of greed, grasp, anger, and hatred, and with the fire of ignorance, delusion, they burn. Just like a moth is attracted to the fire, and he jump to the flame and be burned to death. It's applied to human choice. It's exactly applied to human life. Because of attracted by some desire, even we already know it is an unwholesome desire. But our choice was based on that desire, and we make a wrong choice. Attracted by some other man or woman or fame or material wealth, whatever things. By that desire, we shackle ourselves. We imprison ourselves because of that desire or thought. So our founding master said, okay, I forgot to type it. Our founding master said, how can we get rid of the desire? There are many paths. As I said in the previous class, give rise to a great vow, illunsang vow, then your petty desire will subside. That's the fundamental approach. The second approach might be, he said in his canon, when responding to any matter, maintain a respectful state of mind and fear the rise of greed as if it were a liar. As if it were a liar. Think about that. You are in a very solid truck. You go on safari watching the lion. You know you're inside the truck and you're safe. But when the lion jumps to you, to your truck, you may be afraid. Just like you try to avoid that lion, we better avoid our unwholesome desire. That's the second approach. Okay, the third reason why we cannot make a very skillful choice is let me read the principal book of Won Buddhism. We are enticed by habits that are solid like iron or stone, so that we do not put into practice our choice of the good and the forsaking of the bad. Because of our habit, we cannot make a very good choice. You're getting up early or late. You talk too much, too little, or you find the fault with others, or you practice meditation, whatever things it is, it's all your habit. It's Americans' habit is the second nature. I heard that American expression, habit continues to the grave. But the reality is habit continues not just to our grave, but to our next life. Our founding started to search for the way and performed lots of ascetic practice from the age of 8. He said, after he was enlightened, he said, because of the habit of my past lives, I started to search for the truth from a very early period. So how can you break your bad habits or free yourself from unwholesome desire in order to make a very mindful choice? There are many things, but I think your determination is everything. You have to decide your mind to break your bad habits or get rid of some form of unwholesome desire. Edison is a very smart person. In order to invent an electric bulb, he experimented different gas inside the bulb and different material to make the filament. He failed more than 900 times. But why he could continue to carry on those experiments? Because he's determined to invent an electric bulb. Buddha said, when I searched for the way in Himalayas, he said, the pleasure of the palace and the suffering in the snow mountain was all the same. Why? Because he was determined to search for the way. So in whatever area, whether it's a breaking bad habit or whatever area, so your or our determination is everything. Ever since I was a prime minister, at least one time, I chanted the Ilwansang vow. You can decide your mind. You think your determination is very solid, but as time passes, it can be weakened gradually. That's why we need to determine ourselves again and again. Just like we chant Ilwansang vow every day. So Ilwansang vow says, until we attain the great power of Ilwan, be united with the nature of Ilwan. So we have to decide our mind, determine ourselves continually. You know, Reverend Song, the moving meditation teacher at the Warren Institute, he was born an excellent athlete. It's not like other person. He has inborn talent. So he was, when he learned martial art, Taekwondo, when he was a junior high, he was by far the best student of his teacher. But his friend did not have that good ability. However hard he tried. Anyway, Reverend Song decided his mind to become one Buddhist minister and entered the Wangwang University in the department of Won Buddhism. When he was a senior, he happened to meet his friend with whom he learned and practiced Taekwondo, that martial art, under the same mentor. He was very surprised. His friend was a Taekwondo teacher, Taekwondo master. He was very chubby and very slow, but he was very thin and very athletic. And that impressed him, and his friend suggested, why don't we stand each other in this way? His friend, Reverend Song is still a great martial artist, particularly in Taekwondo. And his friend suggested, why don't we place one apple on top of our head, and they come close, almost touching each other, and using high kick, and kick your partner's apple. To Reverend Song, it's a piece of a cake. But he suggested, why don't, he's a friend, as a martial artist, he can do that very easily. But he said, under one condition, we should do that with our eyes closed. Reverend Song needed to close the eyes and use that high kick. Reverend Song could not do that because he might kick his friend's head. But his friend kicked the apple with his eyes closed very easily. So Reverend Song told this to me and said his friend was really, really impressive because he practiced Taekwondo, then martial art again and again. So he was better right now than Reverend Song. Our determination Our making up our mind is the same in whatever area. We have to do continuously. When you read one Buddhist canon, one of the common phrase our founding master used pretty often is for a long time, repeatedly, after lengthy practice, then we will eventually break our bad habits and whatever we can be free from all these things. So our founding master said, nevertheless, the most difficult task become easy if a practitioner firmly makes up one's mind and devote oneself to attaining. On the other hand, for those who are not unwilling to pursue it or who gives up midway, even the easiest task will become difficult. Okay, thank you so much. Stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Reverend Yu. I don't know how you remember all those stories. That's the first time I've heard that story, and I work with Reverend Song. Thank you for that. Okay, so now we're going to go into our breakout rooms. There's so much beautiful content to work with, so I will open up the rooms for everybody. Welcome back, everyone. Good to see you. What I love about when people come back from the chat rooms is that you have mostly have the smile on your face, which means that there were some good discussions going on. So just to start with Brenda or Desi, if there's any sharing that you'd like to have, please do so.
Yes, I was lucky to be able to talk with Desi, and we just kind of expanded upon her journaling, and she explained a little bit more how, you know, she has the precepts that she's working on and her plan of action of when this happens, what am I going to do differently? And then how she uses her daily diary just to kind of tie everything together. We also spoke about how, you know, in her profession, with speech, that sometimes it is so important to just allow people to be heard and to actively listen. That is just so essential to good relationships and to just a good way to treat people. So anything else?
I think the thing that stuck out for me in our conversation, which I was very happy to be with Brenda too, was we both shared how situations where there are casual relationships, like it says in the scripture, are some of the harder ones. So I was sharing with her when she mentioned it, I said, yeah, I said, well, you know, if I'm in a situation where it's, people I'm not as familiar with, or if it's not necessarily intimate loved ones. But like, for instance, my husband, who is the source of much material in my fixed term diary. Um, interestingly, so are my dogs. Um, yeah, especially the boy dog. Anyhow, those casual relationships are the ones where I seem to have the more practice I need to do, and where a lot of the sensory conditions that move me actually happen. And so it's just fascinating how it's so shared. And the thinking of that scripture is what also brought it up after Brenda said it, which was really, really fascinating.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah. So much teachings from those around us. Also, so Allison's group, I know it's Allison, Bob, Christine, or Renchino. Anyone from that group that'd like to share?
Allison.
Bob, you want to go ahead?
Oh, well, not really, but we got off topic a little bit, talking about my son's upcoming marriage, the Hindu marriage. But anyway, we talked about choices and we talked about determination, and Allison talked about making a very difficult choice to leave Australia, leave her mother behind, and then move to this country. And she has children and grandchildren here, and how uplifting her mother always was. She would go visit her, and at certain periods of her life, her mother could come here. But a person who was always happy, even into her very late age, in a nursing home. And Christine really had the same experience with her mother, but also making the choice to adopt children, one from the Bahamas and one from Korea, and how that kind of expanded her world in learning about biases and race and prejudice and all kinds of things, as that does. And I think we all, when we read the scriptures and thought more about choices, did some self-reflection as to, what if I made a different choice at this point in my life? What if I gone this way instead of that way? What if I married that other person or didn't marry the person I did, or whatever? Well, in some cases you really don't know if you had taken another path. What's the poet who said, two paths diverged in the wood? And Robert Frost. And I took the one less traveled, and that made all the difference. Well, I don't know if we all made the one less travel. Some of us made the one that everybody travels, I guess. But at any rate, and we talked also about Desi's determination and how impressive her determination is. So anyway, I think the gist of it all, although we got off topic as people often do, was the connection between choices and determination.
Great. Wow, that's really wonderful. Okay, and how about Tiffany Patty's group? I think there was also Matt and Kathy in that one as well.
I'll go because so in short, I think, not to repeat all the great things that the other group said, those elements were a part of our conversation too. But I agree with the word Patty used, that the conversation was compelling because we were fortunate, to be together and to talk with Kathy, who shared earlier with all of us about her beloved brother. And as she put it, you saw the culmination of a lifetime of practice and what that looks like when things become difficult or looks bleak. And the idea of that we each are given an opportunity every day to practice and to improve ourselves is something that is tremendously important. And the focus was the word practice. It wasn't about perfection. And there was also mention, as others, about keeping a journal and what does that look like and how does it help to rid oneself of delusions and aspects, because you're not aware of everything until maybe you see it on the written page. And it makes it a little more honest. And the work that we do each day in applying the Dharma not only benefits us, we all said we've been transformed as we become practitioners, but it really does transform others that we're in contact with, because even though they're not aware of the journey they're on, it's that light of truth that each practitioner has an opportunity to bring. So everything that we have learned in this class really culminated in this chapter of how do you put it towards action. So there was a lot of gratefulness in sharing in our group. Did I miss anything? Okay,
No.
Thank you all so much. It was great talking with you.
You covered everything, Tiffany. Thank you. And last but not least, Franny's group. Franny, Isabel, James, Steve. Is there anyone who'd like to share from that group?
Okay. Well, we went over a lot of the things that have been discussed already, and how wonderful the talks were, and the meditation, how determination is so important, and Desi's determination was very inspiring, as well as Kathy's beautiful stories, several of them. Thank you both, and Christine. And then we kind of focused on Reverend Yu's talk, which was quite amazing to listen to. And it just spelled out so well what we need to do in order to get to choice and action. And beginning with a vow, which is such an important thing to be able to make and to keep and to remember. And I was having a conversation with Reverend Yu today about this. It's been quite important in my life to be able to make the vow and renew my vow. And but also Soto-san talks about it in one of the places that we read this week, where he says that whenever we are finding a sensory condition that's very difficult to overcome, and he puts it differently this time. He says something like, remember your grand objective, which of course is also the vow, I assume. And so it was beautiful to be able to discuss this with everybody in this group. And then we went into cause and effect. And again, James was talking about how he realized that every tiny little thing we do, every tiny little action, how important to just think before we act. What is this going to bring for our lives and for our lives to come? What are the effects of this one little thing we're doing, and how important that is? Mm. And Steve brought something up that was very important, and he talked about what's going on in politics today, and how leaders have that also. They're gonna, every little thing they do, every word they say is not only affecting themselves and the people just around them, but everybody in the country and the world. And what is going on today with the kind of divisive speeches and discourses, and how long that's gonna last because of what's going on today. And so, that was around where we were just discussing this and getting deeper and deeper into this. And it was a wonderful conversation to have. It was deep and constructive, and warning also of cause and effect, how important that is to be able to understand. So thank you everybody.
Thank you for that, Isabel. Thank you for your group. It sounds like everyone had a very fruitful discussion. So just thanks again to Christine for opening up with the loving kindness, and then for Kathy and Desi for sharing their stories and their practice. And so for our closing, I'm just going to invite again Reverend Yu to close us with some comments.
Okay, thank you so much for your wonderful sharing and the discussion. As I said, as a meditation teacher, I have taught meditation for many years. The typical question, how to be free from drowsiness, how to be free from wandering thoughts. There are dozens of techniques, so many techniques. But if that practitioner, the meditator, is not determined to practice meditation in a devoted way, nothing will work. Technique is not the point. Our attitude, determination is very important. If you are determined, you will figure it out how to be free from drowsiness and wandering thoughts, for example. But our own determination is not the whole story. When we plant the seed, let's say the seed of our vow, but seed itself cannot sprout. It can never grow into a big tree. It have to meet a fertile topsoil, sunshine, moist, etc. Our founding master said, self-power and other power. Determination is our self-power. It's the starting point, but it's a far easier, skillful way to borrow other people's power. For example, why you join in this class? You can study scripture by yourself. You are borrowing the other people's power. You can practice at home, but you go to the Sangha, whether it's North Carolina Temple or One Dharma Center, because you are with the other power. Especially, our founding master said, actually, it's really hard to break our bad habit. What can be more hard to break our bad habit? So in that case, you offer prayer at the beginning or at the end of the meditation so that the memory goes to that direction, to that. It's also one part of the borrowing other power. Or our third Head Dharma master, Master Desan, said, even though you don't pray for anything, you better pray for meeting a very good teacher. If you connect yourself with your teacher or Shakyamuni Buddha, our founding master, your mind will be empowered and strengthened. Our founding master said, a little fly cannot fly for 1,000 miles in one day. But if it sticks itself to the back of the horse, it can go 1,000 miles. But it's not totally free. The fly should make effort to stick to that galloping horse. So think about self-power and other power. Then we will harvest a very good crops. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Yu. Thank you, everyone else. Thank you for sharing your other power, and we'll meet again next Thursday. So have a very, very good night.